Today we are going to talk about a monetary policy setting mechanism by the central bank. So we are going to start with the loss function, and then we have a relationship between output and inflation, or the aggregate supply curve, or so-called Phillips curve. So firstly, we are going to solve the problem when the central bank has discretion. So the question needs to be solved using backward induction. So we will first solve the second stage, in which the central bank optimally sets pi given pi e. Then we will solve the first stage, in which pi is formed rationally. So we are kind of reversing the process, where first we have got the private sector forming inflation expectation pi e, and then supply side shock is realized, and then finally the central bank sets the optimal level of pi. So we will just use substitution, and then first order condition, which is quite intuitive, and then we will get a function of pi. So we note that we have got this term that we need to substitute out in order to get a function of pi only. So we are now going to solve for the private sector inflation expectation. So we note that with inflation expectation pi e at pi star, we will have that the expectation of pi bigger than pi star. So we have got dynamic inconsistency here. Then we use rational expectation to solve for the inflation expectation. So we take expectation of this function, and then what we will get is that this is the pi e, which is larger than the inflation target. So we have inflation bias here. And if we substitute this back to this function, then we will get a function of pi only. And we have got a function of y, so we will solve for y by substituting inflation expectation and this equation of pi into the Phillips curve. So we have got our inflation and output in equilibrium here. So we will see that both are affected by the shock, and then we will see that if we substitute these two into the loss function, then we will get the expected loss is this. So yeah, and then we will check what is going to happen if the central banker has commitment to an inflation target. So given this, the public will form expectation, and then given the Phillips curve, we will get this as the equilibrium output. So we can immediately see that the output is affected by the shock entirely, but this is for in exchange for the fact that inflation is set. And then we will have an expected loss like this. So we can compare the both, and then we might see that this will be larger than this. And then we will have incentive contracts, which is to add a term to the loss function. And again, we solve the problem by substitution and first order condition. And what we will get that is that the inflation bias is eliminated, but there will be no effects on the volatility. And then we will check what's going to happen for our monetary policy rules in a dynamic context. But most problems will involve solving a static problem. So the difference here is that previously the central bank is choosing pi, but now it is now choosing r. So we have our dynamic Phillips curve and a dynamic IS curve, which is a function of y and r. So we are going to substitute for pi into the loss function, and then since pi contains y, we can substitute out y. So yeah, finally we are going to get a function of pi and of post y and r. So we solve this problem by first order condition with respect to rt, and this happens when t s equals t plus 2. So yeah, since there is uncertainty here, we need to take expectation of the loss function, and we will set the error term equals to 0, and after doing so we will get this equation. We will see that this equation by taking expectation of the dynamic Phillips curve is also equal to this. So this gives us a chance to solve for RT and then pi t, and then we will get an expression for RT in the end, which is the Taylor rule. So it's quite evident that RT will be lower if we want to achieve a higher inflation target, etc. And notice that if we substitute this into the first order condition, so all this is just pi t plus 2, this long bit, and we will see that this is the inflation forecast targeting.